Welcome back to another episode of the Mono Radio. Today we have two guests on. We have Sean Cousins, who most people know. He is, I guess we call you co-owner these days.
Co-owner.
And
second in charge.
And also frothing more than ever, I think.
Yeah, probably.
He's got a good run with his training lately. And we have someone that you guys might not have met, but you have actually interacted a lot with him on a daily basis, I'd say. Luke Starr, who's responsible for the programming at the gym.
Hey guys, how are we?
Starr has been back. Starr has been on the podcast a while ago. We did talk about the programming then, but I know there's a lot of new people at the gym, so we're obviously going to get into why we're doing 100 million reps on Fridays and Wednesdays, I think it is. Everyone's battling just with the warm-up sets. But to kick everything off, I thought we'd start with you guys, how you first got into CrossFit or interacted with CrossFit. Because I think a lot of people don't know that, or even fitness in general. So maybe we should be polite and start with Starry, who's the guest.
Yeah, so CrossFit, if we're talking CrossFit, I think I did my first CrossFit wide in like 2007. And yeah, so.
That's early.
I remember you telling me once the story about you, and I can't remember who it was, but the first time you saw CrossFit was on YouTube or something. You watched someone do Helen, is that right?
Oh, so like when I think about my early memories of CrossFit, was like watching the main site, and because the only source of workouts and any kind of media about it was pretty much through the CrossFit main site and their videos, yeah. And the ones that come to mind are like the Helen.
Was that OPT?
OPT, James Fitzgerald, which now is OPEX, which is pretty anti-CrossFit in a way, So it's funny how things play out, but like his video, and then the video of the Nasty Girls workout with, like, some of the classic workouts have the girls' names as their, the benchmarks, and it had three of the original girls from the original CrossFit Santa Cruz
Annie
gym
was there,
yeah, Annie's still around. And that,
what did you think about it? What was your thoughts around it before you? Because you watched it, but you hadn't actually done.
Well, you hadn't really seen. I was interested. Like, I'd just come out of uni where I'd been interested in exercise science and stuff like that, and I'd come from a rugby background, and I was starting to work in gyms and work in fitness. But I had that. I've always been a bit competitive, and I always liked to sort of, almost compete in the gym a little bit. Like, I had that kind of want to do, and so I was interested in CrossFit because you were measuring the reps, you had range of motion, like you had movement standards and stuff like that. So that was like interesting to me, and that's what sparked my interest. And then also just the use of things like some Olympic lifting, which you didn't really see in gyms at the time much at all.
And you hadn't had any experience with powerlifting and stuff like that, or
very little. Just playing around with it, and a little bit with some rugby strength and conditioning that I'd been exposed to a little bit just through footy, but very, very little. And the most that I'd sort of been shown was like a hang power clean, probably pretty poorly, So seeing these people do things like, weightlifting in a conditioning setting, with that Nasty Girls video with all three of those girls doing strict ring muscle ups on low rings, so just keeping their knees off the ground. Well, that was impressive. Like, that's still impressive now.
Yeah.
Everyone's does keeping stuff, but like, I was like, wow. And so that just, and those videos were what inspired me to just keep and I used to be pretty excited each month because I subscribed to the CrossFit Journal, and the PDF would come or whatever.
I remember that.
And I'd be like, and it came through at a weird time, like American time or something. Because I remember being up late at night reading the CrossFit Journal.
Oh wow! I didn't go that far.
Oh my God.
It's funny now.
It's very funny now.
I remember the PDFs because I would print them.
Yeah, there you go.
I just print them.
There you go. So I was right into it, and I still am into it. I still
Sounds like you weren't that difficult to convince.
Nah.
Get
on the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Sean, how about you?
Well, I've been a trainer. 2008 is when I did my personal training course, and then I went straight into it. So I've been PT since I was 2008, and then I found it probably a different way to most. I found CrossFit through CrossFit Endurance. So Brian Mckenzie,
Yeah.
remember Brian
Yeah.
McKenzie runs CrossFit Endurance? Turns out he's never finished an ultra marathon. Brian McKenzie.
Actually, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's 100% true, but I'm gonna roll with it because I read it when I was reading about him, and he had pulled out of a bunch of really long races. He had trained for them and entered them, and then just pulled out of a lot of them. But anyway, I found it. I was living over in the Middle East, and at the time I was a runner. And I wanted to find a way that I could train my running group more inside rather than just spending the whole time outside. So I was just scouring through Google looking at programs and came across CrossFit Endurance. And then I was like, oh, we could incorporate this a little bit because I'm more comfortable inside the gym training people. And then it was like even in CrossFit Endurance, you started doing like barbell stuff and then I was just like, oh, this is sick. And then all the endurance stuff just went out the window, and I just went hard at CrossFit. So that was start of 2010, I reckon, is when I found CrossFit Endurance. So I started doing those workouts first, and then went back through the loop into like just CrossFit stuff.
That's interesting.
Yeah, a little bit different to most. So I don't.
I knew you. I did know that you had a bit of an endurance background at some point. Well, you got a lot of different backgrounds at different sports. It's hard to keep track. But I knew at some point that was in the mix there.
Yeah.
You forget the main one. He's really just a squash player. That's all he is.
The more people that forget that, the better. So that was. I didn't get into running. I had to do it for my job. I had to coach or train a group of people to run the Dubai Marathon. That was how I got into it. So I was sort of forced into running. I definitely didn't choose that path. And then after that, once I realized I actually really enjoyed it, so then I sort of continued on with that, but then found CrossFit Endurance. And then when I moved back from the Middle East, that's when I joined CrossFit Norwest with Rob, a mutual friend of all of ours, very funny guy. And I think that's the first time I probably heard about you, because then I got my whole family into it. So then I got my brother into it, and my brother was deep into it at CrossFit Active, which is where Starry was. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead here. But then I remember watching the first regionals at the wood chopping arena.
At home.
Not the first one,
Home
sorry.
Park,
Yeah, sorry. That was the second one.
That was
It was after Randwick.
You had sectionals? Yes, that was sectionals though, no?
Now, CFX was the first regionals was there, and it was
Oh, was it?
2009. Anyone could just
Yeah,
register
right.
and do it, and then you had 2010 at the Randwick Racecourse.
Yeah.
And then 2011
so then-
was the Woodchop Arena.
Yeah, so I remember going to the wood chopping arena, and Dean, my brother, was heavy into CrossFit Active. Heavy.
Specifically active.
Yeah. And you were competing there, obviously, and I just remember everyone yelling about Battle Cat.
Yeah.
I remember people leaning over the fence, just screaming, "Come on, Battle Cat!" And I'm like, who are these idiots? And it was Starry.
I remember that workout as well. It was your all-time best two movements: deadlift and box jump.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
The
Yeah, I've got
deadlift box
photos
jump
from
workout.
that. That's sick.
Yeah. The Battle Cat thing was just this.
Where did Battle Cat come
It
from?
was just this conversation that we must have been having like that year. Maybe it was like not long before that regionals, and we're just having this chat in the gym about what your favorite. It was one of those questions like, if you could be a cartoon character, who would you be? And then I just sort of thought about like He-Man was like my favorite cartoon growing up as a kid, and then I thought about Battle Cat, which is his cat, his lion.
The green tiger.
Yeah.
The green
And then I was like, I want to be Battle Cat, because I remember I had the figurine, the green tiger.
Yeah.
I had the figurine when I was a kid and stuff. So then that just stuck and then all of a sudden I was
didn't know
Battle
that.
Cat, and that's where it came from. That's why you would have heard it.
Oh, man.
And then Cam Ahmed was commentating that year.
Yeah.
Yes.
And him and I are mates, and so he got a hold of that, and he was just pumping it as the MC. Like,
It sort of died out though, hey?
oh yeah,
It's like-
it probably if thankfully. It's funny because I had a bit of I did some benchmark workouts for my one of my programs recently. And one of them, at the end of these 5 benchmarks, the last benchmark I actually called Battle Cat.
Oh, wow.
I made it like...
Was it deadlift and box jumps?
Yeah, it was. It was deadlifts and box jumps. And chest bars. I threw chest bars in there. It was like my favourite things. And it was a bit of a piss take of myself, I guess. But, I mean,
that's gold. That is a good name for a workout as well, though.
Battle Cat. That sounds awesome. No, terrible movements for me. I won't be doing that one. Deadlift box jump.
But no one really knew what the reference was, apart from like the guys that, years ago I used to train with.
The active crew. We caught on to it pretty quickly, though.
The Battle Cat.
I wanted to ask a question going back to your background, Sean, but I want to ask you first, Starry.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 2 different athletes, or not 2 different athletes, but there's 2 different type of athletes or backgrounds often that we talk about. It's being an endurance athlete and a power athlete. So someone who can, let's say someone has a soccer background or a running background and they can kind of run for 90 minutes fairly easy at a slow pace. And then you have someone who's a weightlifter and they can lift heavy weights for 1 rep, but then you ask them to run for 5 minutes and they struggle. Those 2 types. How would you, because Sean has a very interesting mix of those 2. What type of athletes do you think that he is?
That's really interesting, yeah, and because I was surprised. I didn't know about Sean's endurance background until I'd known him for I think a couple of years, and then he was like, "Oh yeah, I used to do some ultra running and stuff like that." I think he told me, and at the time I knew him as a guy that was really good at. At the time, he was doing some really impressive stuff with his weightlifting, and I just knew him as being powerful and really high strength to weight ratio and stuff. So I was a bit surprised to hear about the endurance background as well. I think, and I'm interested to see what he says about this as well. I think physiologically, he's more a power guy, a fast twitch guy, so to speak. But I haven't seen much of his endurance activity to comment. Like, to be honest, I've just heard about this endurance background that he's had.
Yeah, it all happened
allegedly.
in Dubai.
Yeah,
so maybe never.
Like,
That was a heaps good run.
So, and then you've got a lot of energy systems there, or not a lot of energy systems, but when you're talking the really long stuff, it's almost not this isn't really my area of experience is the long distance, really long endurance stuff, but I think a lot of it is just attrition and building up volume and being able to tolerate those distances, those times, those durations, like psychologically as well as just with the right sort of nutrition and resilience that you've built up over accumulating the necessary like hours in it. Whereas if it's like something that's let's say a 10K or shorter, but still endurance, I think that's where it's even more important to have like a really high power output with your aerobic system and that kind of stuff. I don't know. These are sort of my thoughts on it. So my explanation that I'm kind of coming to here is that maybe he's more naturally gifted in the shorter time domain power type stuff, but he had some traits that even if he wasn't physiologically suited so much to the endurance stuff, he was able to still perform fairly well at it.
And he might have an upbringing where he didn't know that he was a power athlete, but ended up playing squash and doing more endurance stuff where there's actually a bit of running over a long time, right? So
yeah. So I mean, you played team sports, right, when you were a kid?
Yeah.
So you did ice hockey.
Yeah.
Rugby.
Did inline hockey, rugby, touch. Yeah, played a lot of sport. But I think, like, my opinion on it was, like, coming from squash, you'd say a long game of squash goes for anywhere between sort of an hour and 2 hours, like the really high and stuff, long stuff. But it's so explosive. It's like one of the most explosive fast sports. So it's like really high power output, but for a really long period of time. And the intensity as well is a lot higher than say tennis, like would be the most comparable sport. But tennis is a lot longer time frame. Their games go for a lot longer. But their intensity and their output is significantly less than a squash player. So on a squash court, you might cover, 5-6 kilometers or whatever, but all at super high pace. So I think it's a really unique sport like that on what it trains you, I suppose, to be good at. I think it gives you a really good span of power and endurance as well. So now you would actually see a lot of the really good squash players at the moment are doing a lot of like really powerful movements, whereas they used to just run. Like sort of as the sports progress, and obviously as that people are starting to catch on a little bit more.
So they do hang power cleans now.
Yeah, they do. They do. One of the best squash players in the world is Paul Cole. He's a CrossFitter, and like he's a like frothing CrossFitter.
British guy.
Sorry,
is he
he's
British?
a Kiwi.
Oh,
yeah,
wow. Yeah.
So and he does a lot of CrossFit as well. So I think that's where I got the base from. It was through because I played squash since I was really little. And then obviously touch footy and rugby. I was running every day of the week, but I was never running long distance stuff. But just I think the cumulative time that you put through your joints and stuff by doing that as a kid allowed me to run long. But if we're going off like my makeup, my natural makeup, like I was competitive in weightlifting, I was never competitive in running.
Yeah.
Like I could run long. And the longer it went, the more competitive I got. Like a 5K and 10K time trial, hopeless. Like I would not be able to post competitive times in that. But over a 50 to 100K, or longer, that's where I would become more and more competitive. So I think, naturally I was like much more fast twitch. But then I think through my upbringing as well, it forced me to do a lot of the other other training
It
output.
sounds like it makes a lot of sense,
Yeah. But I think it like super unique sport. I like it. I know I
Talk about squash still? I rate squash. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, not many people do.
So where can you play squash on the beaches, and who should you call?
I'm not playing squash at the moment.
Starry's not playing squash.
Not with my Achilles the way it is, but
That's all right.
or my elbow.
Elbow and Achilles? I don't think it's the right sport for you. The battle cat on court, I don't want to see it.
No,
Okay,
because
so
I have to rely on running around the court a lot because I don't have much skill. So it's
And
not
short
good.
arms,
Yeah, it's
like
not
me. So I want to bring this question back to so to make it relevant for people that are fairly new at the gym, or even people that have been here for a while, because we see all types of genetic makeups coming into the gym, and what often people forget is they think especially with CrossFit, but any training, if you're trying to get better at it, they think they're trying to work on everything at once. Like every week, you just got to cover everything. But it's different focus for someone who has an endurance background or an endurance, natural ability compared to someone who's a powerful athlete, right?
Yep.
Could you, let's maybe start with Sean. Could you explain a little bit what do you think is a good attitude to go in with if you say you have one or the other?
I think the most important thing is the outcome that you're after. So say, for example, if we have someone come in and they're a pre-existing endurance athlete, but they're coming into the Mono gym to improve their endurance running. You know what I mean? But then 6 weeks in, 8 weeks in, they go, I wouldn't mind learning a kipping pull-up. And like that, the Olympic weightlifting looks fun. Can I start to learn that? And they start to deviate from potentially what their outcome, what they really wanted is. And it's really in here easy to absorb other people's goals, because you see people getting their first ever pull-up, their first ever handstand, they're PRing their back squat, and you go, like, oh, that looks fun, or like, I want to do that. And then they absorb other people's goals and they're like, now I want to pull up. And it's like, well, that pull up isn't necessarily going to help you break that 4-hour marathon first time ever. So I think the easiest way to do it is to sort of reverse engineer it and find out like what is the outcome you want out of your training, and then work back from that. So we've got, say, for example, Penny Key, who trains in here, and she did a marathon 3 hours 20, I think. I can't remember what I posted.
Yeah.
3 hours 20, she did that. And she was really diligent with her training. A lot of FSC stuff. She knew that her stability, like anything in here that was unilateral, single leg and the drop lunge and stuff like that was going to be awesome for her. And she was really clear on her outcome. She had a deadline with a race date and stuff like that. So it was easy for her to pick what to do with her training.
That's cool.
But I think people get a bit wishy-washy when they don't know what the outcome. They're like,
what does that mean?
What do you want to do? It's like, I want to lose weight. And it's like, okay, well, there's no real end target to that either. Like, that's not a really good goal for us to have, because one, there's no deadline on it. So if you have a bad week, you can just push your deadline back a week. You know what I mean? There's no end point to that. I want to get fitter. It's like, right, how do you measure fitness? Like, do you measure it with a number on a scale? Do you look in the mirror and go, well, I'm fitter? Do you like go off Fran or your 5K time? Or it's a really wishy-washy goal. So I think if you want to narrow in on how to get better, you have to know your outcome first. And then it's easy. It's so self-explanatory when you know you want to be better at running, you want to be stronger, you want to do more body weight stuff. Then when you read the programming, it's almost jumps off the board at like, right, this is going to help, this is going to help, this is going to help. Whereas when you got no outcome, you just look at the board and you just go, oh, just...
What are you guys doing?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Which, and as well, I don't want to downplay that. I think that is just... like that is fine as well to come in and like if you want to get really good at something in 6 months, you really got to pick and choose the right thing that's going to help you. But if you're looking to get incrementally, like small increments better overall, I mean, and you plan on training for the next 20 or 30 years, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Then you can have
they
go for a bit more variety.
You can get a bit more wishy-washy. I don't want to downplay the fact that you come in and you go, I want to squat today. And it's like, that's fine. And you might not want to squat for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you do want to squat that day. That's okay, especially with your training background and your training history. So I think the best sort of advice I could give on that is reverse engineer it. What do you want to get good at, or what do you want to get better at, or what's your main goal, and then work backwards. And if you haven't got that main goal, come in and just enjoy it. Like, just have fun. Very similar to how we approach our training at the moment.
Yeah.
I think that's a great answer, and I might tweak the question a little bit for you, Starry, because that Sean's answer there, I think, is relevant for 90% of the people that train here. But we do have a small portion that like to compete in CrossFit, and the CrossFit Open is coming up, and there's definitely some people that get carried away with that stuff. And you just had a camp. You specifically train athletes for CrossFit as a sport.
Yep.
Let's do the same question for that little group there. What do you think is important for someone who has maybe an endurance background, or maybe has a opposite end of that, they have a powerful background, a power sport background? What would you recommend for those type of athletes to come in and look at the training, and then often people get carried away because they want to either work on something that they're not good at, or they just want to work on stuff they're good at, right? Like you probably see both of those.
Yeah, I see that, and there's that because it's a generalist sport, so there's always, the list is endless of things that you want to be able to work. You need to be able to improve and work on. Whether it's anything from strength to endurance, whether it's any of the many different skills and exercises, and whether it's like many of the different types of combinations of those things as well. So there's always something you can work on. So it's very easy when you come into the gym, especially when gym like this one, where there's a couple of different streams of programming and a few different things going on, to be like, oh, I'm doing this, but I want that too. So that's a really common conversation I have with just athletes in general about where they want to channel their focus, because it's hard to work on everything at once. So going to your question about the two different types of people, I think for the majority of people's CrossFit training, if they're looking to compete in it, actually there's a lot of overlap between those two groups, because there's a lot of things that a CrossFit athlete would want to be doing, say, on a weekly basis, like things like just your basic like squatting and touching on some gymnastics and touching on a couple of different time domains anyway, no matter where you are on that kind of spectrum of high power versus endurance. But if you are like a truly like more of an endurance background or talented person, then you will want to try and bias a little bit more towards the stuff that has more strength elements in it.
Yeah,
and
which is, I think, for us, Mondays, Fridays.
Yeah,
at this point.
Yeah, that's right. We're doing. I'm pretty sure with you guys, it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. There's the giant sets that we've been doing in the program. Yeah. And and so they're following a progression that will lead to some heavier lifting over the coming months towards the Open, and we'll get into the heavier barbell work more frequently in the program. That's a progression within the program that would be wise to follow if you're in that sort of group of people that need to work particularly more on the strength side of things. Yeah,
and you're trying to get better at that, obviously.
Yeah.
And on the opposite end, I think it's Thursdays we have a longer conditioning piece, right?
Yeah, Thursday tends to be Thursdays, and the Saturday tends to be a bit more of a longer endurance focus piece, and so if you were if you know that's a bit of a hole or weakness in your game, and you're a bit more naturally sort of stronger in those areas, then that would be the days that you want to steer more towards that kind of stuff. Yep.
And so a specific question then about Thursdays, because often the workouts, I would say often they read boring, but when you do them, they're not boring at all.
Yeah.
Because it could be rowing for 100 cals, ski for 100 cals, bike for 100 cals, so something along those lines. Like it's pretty what we call monostructural. It's just one type of movement. What attitude would you say is important to go into on a day like that? Because a lot of people look at it and it's like, oh, but I can't why don't we just do rowing and barbells and burpees all the time? Like,
it's so monotonous.
Mix it up,
and it can be an acquired taste, especially if you come from a lot of the circuit-based work and you like that part of that style of the CrossFit training, which historically, like a lot of us were in the earlier days of CrossFit, that's all it really was.
Yeah, and it's more fun, right?
Yeah, it's more fun. It keeps you more engaged, but two of the main reasons, just the rationale behind it. One of them is physiologically, like to get that aerobic system working, or to make sure we're working that engine aspect. You want to have types of contractions like on the machines that allow you to do that. What I'm getting at is if something like burpees and pull-ups and things where you've got to go to another station and do a completely different kind of pattern that involves a bit of strength and skill, it takes away from the stimulus that we're trying to get, which is targeting that whatever energy system is we're working that day, because it depends where you are on that skill for your strength levels or how you can make it flow. So it's not the kind of like contraction or exercise that's going to induce that energy system kind of response. It's usually like the aerobic kind of system we're going after on those Thursdays, for example. So being on the machines and being at a certain pace, and if we're doing interval work where we're trying to keep those intervals a certain number each way, is quite effective at going after the endurance side of things. So that's like the rationale behind it. And also the other thing is having parts of that in your training throughout, say, a week gives the body a bit of a rest from the joints, a bit of a rest from the more impactful kind of like barbell cycling or gymnastics work, which is part of CrossFit and needs to be done, but it's also can, if you're doing that kind of stuff day in, day out all the time, it does end up being a bit hard on the joints and on the body. So there's sort of two reasons why we have that there. Yeah,
we talked about that on the last podcast with you as well. Like lifting a heavy barbell every day, it's never going to end well for anyone, I think. It's just too much loading, and because I think from memory you said that the barbell is designed to lift a maximal amount of weight. Like it's designed so that you can lift heavy.
Yeah, as opposed to like an odd object like a sandbag or even a dumbbell or something like that. So it's designed to be able to have a lot of weight on it. And it's a bit less forgiving than say dumbbells. But if your movement patterns aren't perfect, but your left and right maybe is a little bit one stronger than the other, or you just everyone moves uniquely, right? So if you're moving with a set of dumbbells, they're a bit more forgiving in wherever your inefficiencies are with your movements or imbalances, and they're not as they don't stress the body quite as much as if when you've got a heavy barbell, it doesn't. It's evenly weight distributed across itself. Yeah. So it doesn't account for any imbalance that you might have within your body. I'm not sure how much sense I'm making with that.
No. That makes sense.
The bottom line is it can be a bit easier on the joints to be able to do more intense training throughout the week and get that intensity that we often will want in our conditioning without the joint impact. And that's why we have a variety of implements. We try and have a variety of implements that we use throughout the week, not just always on that barbell and in our conditioning, mixing in with dumbbells and wall balls and then the machines obviously are like I just spoke about.
Yeah. Sean, so right now we're talking about the current training and some of the programming at the gym. Can you give us a little bit of a rundown of what some of the tendencies you've seen over the last couple of weeks, and what have people done? What are people in the gym generally doing really well, and what would you maybe like to see? Could be some good advice. Obviously, it's very general. And lots of people have different goals and stuff. So, but if you kind of can go on that tangent a little bit.
Well, I think before I sort of answer that, I would say that one of the main reasons that we're just speaking about, which is why Starry does our programming to begin with, is because over the years, I used to program for the gym as well. And then I think as an owner and trainer in the gym, you start to take, you listen to typically the worst people, like the biggest whinger. You know what I mean? Oh, we're squatting again. Oh, we're doing this. And like you.
I was going to say Nick Boudouin, but
Well, there's particular voices in the gym that are the loudest voices, but they don't necessarily speak for the most people. So like you listen to this one guy that comes in every week, and it's is this again? Oh, I don't want to do the long aerobic piece.
It influences you.
Yeah, and then you're writing, and you think about that one voice in your head, and it really impacts maybe the decisions that you make, and you start to make decisions based around this one person who's got the loudest voice, but you don't realize that the 95% of the other people are loving it, but this one loud voice in your head is like changing your programming. So that was a huge reason. And as well, when the programming's really bad, I take no responsibility. I just, when someone comes in, and I think that really helps with the coaches as well, because we can converse and not be.
You're not as invested in it. Yeah,
definitely
like
not.
In terms of,
I can read the programming and not take it personally when they say, "Fuck!" Like I don't want to do that. That's ridiculous. So like that was
you
so
just
hard.
put a rocket up me, send me an email.
Yeah, exactly. And then so I can communicate with my member without getting my sort of back up against a wall, saying, "Well, it's good for you."
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point.
So
Because I've been around in gyms, my own gyms, in the past, like CrossFit Active days, and then also just been around gyms in general. And I know it's kind of from the members' point of view and the other coaches at the gym, it's a respect thing as well. They don't want to disrespect. They put trust in the person to do it. They might have something in there that they want to say about the program, but they also don't want to disrespect that person's ability and whatever. So it helps a lot. Having it this way, I can imagine how it's a bit of a load off your mind, but also allows you to kind of respond.
And it allows you to bond with people as well, because I do the workouts as well, and I can just say like, man, that was super hard. That was shit. That was too heavy. Whatever. And I don't take it personally. And then I can just flick it, start an email.
Mate, I'm gonna need more like snatches next week.
Yeah.
I'm losing too many workouts.
Yeah. The class dusted me up. Can you program this?
So, Starry, when Sean emails you and complains about the program, it's actually not the members here complaining. It's just Sean.
Yeah. He puts us, he makes it sound like he's the good guy. But
He's the loudest
voice. I'm the loud voice. So, and I suppose why, circling
really
back
loud.
to what it was going for, is it's super easy as well. And I think this is, we're all guilty of this in the earlier days, is it's so easy to program fun workouts. That is, you and your best mates can have no experience whatsoever in programming, and you can sit down and write a fun workout.
Yeah.
That's not hard. You don't need much skill to write a fun workout. Typically, though, those fun workouts are cumulative over a period of time. You're going to end up the same, if not worse, as not even an athlete, but just as a person. You might have bad joints, whatever. So that was a big reason why we use Starry as well, is because I find with Starry's program, it's fun and it keeps you engaged, but also at the same time, we do have the, I suppose, the macro goal of making sure people are getting cardiovascular fit, are getting the stability work with all the unilateral stuff. We're doing all the tempo work. We're doing a lot of core stuff. We change directions. We do all of that, but also it is fun as well. And that was something that I think I struggled when I was programming, to balance that. I could make programs that are really good for you, but they're mind-numbingly boring, you know what I mean? But they're very, very good for you. Or I could write a program that's a lot of fun, like a big beat-me-up Saturday workout. But you don't want to be doing that too often, you know what I mean? There's like those fun ones. They're not necessarily the best ones for you. Yeah. So that, and I just wanted to, I suppose, say that with Starry, but I think something that I've noticed in doing the classes again and being a little bit more active with the programming is the way people approach their workouts. So say, for example, we had one the other day, which was the running, sit-ups, and double unders. Mm-hmm. And so I jumped in the class on that and like watching everyone do that. And very, very few people saw that run as the workout. They saw the run as the rest between their sit-ups and their double unders. And they head out the door and they pot along on the run, and they're working at maybe 60%, 50% of their actual potential on the run, but then they come in here and they will go to complete fatigue on a sit-up. Like you hear them, and they're doing sit-ups, and it's like, all right, maybe like if we just took 10 or 20% of that intensity and we applied that to your running, you would have a significantly different response in that workout. And accumulative, if you concentrate on your running outside a little bit more, a little bit every session that we run, it's going to have a huge impact in 3, 6, 9, 12 months. So I'm a little bit biased because I've got a running background, but something I've seen here a lot is people treat the run as rest time. And people will say, but if I run hard, when I get in here, I'm knackered, I won't be able to do a sit-up. And it's like, all right, well, let's break the sit-ups into 6 sets of 10, and let's up your intensity on the run and get you better at running. So then it's sort of accumulative in 6 months' time.
Over time, it'll even out a bit more.
Yeah, it evens out. But that's something that I've noticed a lot in here. No one runs. No one runs. When we program runs, it's like they're jogs at the best. Yeah.
Well, I agree. And it's different for different workouts. But I feel like, so I did that workout with, who smoked me in that one? Like Cliffy?
Oh, yeah.
He was running
He's a great
pretty well.
runner.
Yeah,
Great
he was
runner.
pushing really hard in the run.
I rocked up here one morning because I came to do a class, and some of the guys were moving pretty quick out there on the road in the run because they were doing the class before me was doing the run. I mean, in their defence. I saw some good running out there.
We have got
There's usually
I
one
know
or
what
two.
you mean though.
Yeah.
I know, and it's common you see in classes a lot. It's just people are out the door. Maybe it's because they're not being watched by the coach as much.
Yeah, maybe that is it.
But they want to come in and
I can name the top 5 guys and girls that run. You know what I mean?
okay.
But it's the other bunch of people that I think is like the general feel towards the run is the roller eyes. You know what I mean? Not wanting to they don't want to fatigue themselves on the run because it'll affect what they do in here.
Yeah, they want to come in here and look good, but then out the
But
run,
out there,
look bad.
So what I'd love to see people do is run hard and rest more in here.
Yeah.
You know, like that would be something I think as a group everyone could benefit from. Yeah.
A perfect workout for that we did not that long ago is Helen, because the workout is for most people in the run.
Yep.
And regardless of how you scale it or how you approach that workout, you really should be pushing the run. But then we did another workout where we did pretty heavy barbell in here, different movements, and then there was a 400-meter run in between. And I'd say on that
30,
one,
20, 10?
yes,
Is that, yeah.
I'd say on that one you couldn't go all out on the run.
More of a walk.
Yeah,
There are those ones too.
I'm pretty sure Dushy walked on that one.
I remember I went out the door and I was screaming, Dushy, what are you doing? And he's yelling from the street, I've got a stitch.
Oh, that's right. But yeah, I mean, some workouts, I will say you can slow down the run a little bit, but some you have
100%.
to push.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I don't mean every workout you need to be sprinting, but I would say as a general rule, if you try to run a little bit faster, this goes for everyone, you're going to get more out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, typically rather than treating that as a rest period.
Yeah, and there's just the plotting where you can actually be more treat it as like it's a skill, just like the skills are in the gym. So trying to run light, trying to run with a good posture and think about your breathing and stuff like that. Just having that habit, because as soon as you start, let's say you've just been doing kettlebell swings inside and you're knackered, everyone just wants to kind of plod and run heavy as they come out, and they're just thinking about how hard that last effort was in the gym. But the sooner you can get into a rhythm of, just like I described, nice technically good running. It doesn't have to be super fast, but like at least keeping your technique together as you start that run and head
Lift
out.
your feet up.
Yeah.
Got
And not
a few
just like,
shufflers.
oh God, I'm on the run.
Yeah.
So now we touched on the topic of different types of workout a little bit, and that's kind of been an ongoing thing throughout CrossFit, where we've been talking about workouts that's a test. There's all these workouts with female names, but sometimes we do like an every minute on the minute type of workout where we clearly are not trying to go for pace, we're going for quality. Let's maybe begin with Sean. Can you explain a little bit of the different styles of workouts and what's the difference in the program, and we can maybe have some examples from recent weeks where it's more of a test and you should push yourself, whereas the opposite would be more of a controlled type of workout?
Well, the beauty of recently as well is we've been putting it on the board to make it a lot more clear of when we're testing, and usually we'll write test. Good. So that's a pretty clear indication that we want you to, one, track it, and two, we're looking for we want to see where you're at. This is your chance to sort of really push and see where you're at. It might be skill still, like the double under test that we had recently, where it's not like, doesn't matter how hard you try if you haven't got the skill yet. Obviously, that's going to struggle. But I think the greatest thing that we've been doing recently is, and I think which will got a lot of people's attention, were these giant sets on the 4 minutes.
Yeah,
as well.
Definitely not a test.
Not a test. Not a test. And a test I'm failing if it was a test. They are really tough. But I think with giving people the set time domains in their strength work, I think has really helped a lot of people understand the intensity that they've needed in strength. So say, for example, if we were to just do really generic, but 3x5 back squat.
Yep.
Especially when you're new, you don't know. Sometimes people, they do their sets and it might be, for argument's sake, 95, 135, 185. And that's their 3 sets of 5, 95.
Yeah.
And then it's like, all right, if we got our last set at 185 for a set of 5, how much of a working set was our first one at 95? No. It's not a working set. That's still your warming up set. Your second set at 135, was that really a working set of 50 pounds lighter? So what this on the 4 minute has allowed a lot of people to do is feel the intensity in these early ones. Because it's a higher rep range, they get a clearer idea of the response straight away. So it's like empty barbell warm-up set, and they're like, oh, that was hard. I might put these 25-pound plates away. And it's allowed them, and then it keeps them, I suppose, keeps their rest periods to be more conscious of their rest period, because they know that 4 minutes is coming. So they might not dawdle between the superset as well. They go from that strict press, they go down to the deficit push-ups, and they get the fatigue that we're looking for. Whereas if we just said, all right, guys, 3 sets of these 3 movements, and we gave them no time domain, I know after that strict press, and I would do it too, I'm taking 2 or 3 minutes before I hit that deficit push-up, you know what I mean? And missing that sort of, assume what we're going for there is a little bit more strength endurance work and getting that really sort of high fatigue feeling without just loading the joints with lots of weight.
And well, the other thing that's important to note about these giant sets we've been doing lately is that we've kind of been doing them, we're going after, it's a bit more of a body part split across the week, so that it's like a pressing, pulling and squatting kind of focus. So there is a bit of crossover between the exercises of the muscle groups being used. So by the time you get a few sets in, these muscle groups are fatiguing each other a little bit. Like it's compounding a little bit. So as you've probably found, sounds like some of the guys are finding out that it's getting pretty tough towards the end because they might be doing a couple of different pressing movements or whatever it is.
And I think that's the beauty
having awareness of what weight to select and like how to manage that.
It was so funny the first giant set that we did.
We take weights off in the last round and stuff.
First warm up set, people put it on like 25 pound each side. They're like this on the first set and their push-ups and then
because high reps as well.
Exactly.
Very high.
So I think, and going back to the question, that's just as well, that's something that Star is really good at, and why we started with the programming is because we want to get all these different effects in there. And I think this giant set that we're doing at the moment is going to be a really eye-opener for the newer guys and girls on the kind of response that we're looking for in that first part of class. Because I think people can skip that and not get the exact response we're after when potentially we're just doing a standard sort of 5 reps on this, 5 reps on that, 5 reps on that.
Yeah, for sure. And so, just for the guys listening as well, like at the moment, it's more in that strength endurance kind of realm that's a bit more like your bodybuilding type rep ranges. At the moment, we're doing giant sets that are, I'm just trying to remember which exact week you're in, but I'm pretty sure we're in our second 3-week block of the giant sets. So the reps have come down a little bit, but it's the same kind of effect that we're working with doing. We're then going to go into stuff that's a bit more like the strength building rather than like the bodybuilding hypertrophy kind of phase. So I'm just giving a background to the method of the madness here. There's a couple of blocks we've been focusing on this, and then we're going to move towards lower reps and higher loads, and you'll have more rest periods and that kind of stuff. There won't be as many supersetting of different exercises together in these giant sets.
Yeah.
And I think that was some feedback we got last week, which Star and I have spoke about as well. It's giving people a little bit more clear indication on what's coming up.
Yep.
So we're actually Star is going to be writing blurbs now.
Yep.
And there's a couple changes. I'm not sure when you're going to post this, but there'll be a post about this stuff anyway. But we are going to make some changes on giving people a bit of a clearer idea on like the responses that they're after. I suppose the time frame that the blocks are going to go for and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, and generally, what I'm finding is I think quite good with you guys and with a lot of gyms is we repeat certain things for normally a 3-week progression, and they might fall on the same day for a few weeks, and then we'll go into another 3-week progression where it might be different exercises on those days, and the days might move around a little bit, but that template will be similar for 3 weeks. So it's normally about 3 weeks, and the intention is that in week 1, when you see those exercises change and you can see that it's week 1, not to go too hard on the weights in that first week, because generally we'll want to progress in the second week and in the third week. So give yourself a little bit of room, just make it try and look nice, get your baseline as weights, and then we're looking to either improve reps. If we're talking strength work, each week we'll be looking to either increase in the number of reps that we've done with that weight or increase the weight itself. And as long as it's in that rep range that we're trying to shoot for that week.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I think people often come in here and they want to almost max out their effort, or they put the wrong weight on, so they end up maxing out their effort all day, every day.
Yeah.
Whereas if you now know that, okay, we're going to do 15 reps of strict press for 3 weeks on Fridays.
Yep.
Then, okay, let me make this first week. This is the first time it's coming up. Let's make this kind of moving perfect and have a lighter weight.
Yeah.
And then you have the ability to progress.
Yeah, you go up from there, and keeping you guys notified of when the start of each of those 3-week waves is something I think we'll bring in and make sure that it's clear on. And also, starting conservatively, that first week can sometimes be a bit trial and error, and you might make the mistake of going, I think that third set was a bit heavy.
I did that.
Yeah, and you just correct it. So make note of it, correct it for next week. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
But what I would want you guys to kind of know is that if I've put I might have put a rep range of 12 to 15 reps, or I might have actually said 15 reps. But if you're doing that set and you're getting to the set, the 13th rep, and if you don't think you can do another rep, that's all right. You don't have to go for it. Like we don't want to be maxing out our reps all the time. It might happen a little bit here and there throughout the week, but if you're grinding out reps or failing reps on a daily basis in your training, it's not what we're going for. So there's nothing wrong with just stopping that particular set a little bit short and going, okay, that was probably a bit heavy, but I'll just stop to a couple of reps short of failure. Cool, note it down for next week and see if you can increase it next week somehow.
I think I love the rep range that people are targeting. I actually had this conversation with someone last week. They said, like, on the board, 15 to 20, newer member. And they're like, so how many do I do?
It's a pretty broad range.
Yeah, how many do I do? And I said, and then like it was really good, because when I read programs, I understand, I suppose, why we're doing it and why there is that big rep range. But for them, it was like, well, what number do I do?
Yeah.
And and I said, well, this is brilliant, because if we were to just write 12, regardless of what load you had or response you were going to get, you're going to stop at 12. You know what I mean? It's too heavy at 10. You're going to grind 2 more out.
Yeah.
It's super easy. You get to 12. It's like rack the bar. I did what the board said. And it was like, okay, let's not look for maybe just hitting what the board says, but the right response that we're after. And if we're going from 15 to 20, you get to 15 and you go, I've picked the wrong weight. It's too light. You've got that ability then to like apply more reps. Yeah. Or if you get to 15 and you're really struggling, it's like, all right, I've done my minimum work requirement here. And they rack the bar. Yeah. So, and it gives them such and 5 reps is a big sort of
you
kind of
need that at that higher rep range. It's very hard to prescribe percentages for when it's like above 10 reps.
Yeah.
For a huge group of people at different skill and training ages
so
and
you
stuff like that.
You understand. When we get into the heavier stuff, like the 5 reps or less, it's easier to prescribe a percentage of 1RM, for example, or to get a bit more precise with your weight selection and your number of reps, because there's less margin of error and like variability in different people and stuff like that. The other reason I do that as well is if you're sharing It depends if you're sharing equipment with a couple other people or not. But if you are, let's say it's dumbbells, you might not be able to go up and down and weight as easily if you're doing that those time giant sets. So I've tried to make it so there's a bit of leeway that if you're sharing equipment with someone who's potentially a bit stronger than you or not quite as strong, you don't have to necessarily change the weights. You can just do a few more reps within that rep range.
Yeah.
It's good to have that range because, like, I have I have quite a few years of training history, and when we did these giant sets, I kind of did opposite mistakes on different movements. So on the strict press, because I always go in with attitude, okay, I'm going to try and hit 20.
Yeah.
But then on the strict press, you get to 12, 13 reps just with the barbell, like, okay, this is pretty hard. I'm going to finish around 15, 16. But then the deadlift, I probably went a bit too light, and then I got to 15, 16, and I'm like, all right, I'm definitely going to go to 20 here. I'm trying to add the weight. So as you do the movements and as you do that warm-up set, you kind of get a good understanding, okay, this is where I should be at.
Starting to calibrate and figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like that. What I also wanted to add is we've referenced it a little bit here, for instance, with Helen and with these named workouts. Like I said in the beginning, there's lots of new people at the gym who might have no idea about what we're talking about and why that's a thing. Maybe Sean, you can explain what the female workouts are and why maybe for Starry, maybe explain why we don't really do male named workouts and what they are, okay? So we'll start with the female names.
So the female names are traditional CrossFit workouts that are typically tests. Well, they are tests. So they've been around most of them have been around for a really long time. I don't know if they do anymore. I feel like it's a set. Like, I don't think there's new female workouts coming out.
Doesn't seem.
I think the latest one was at the games, which was Amanda.
Amanda, yeah. Which was, what games was that, though?
2012.
Yeah, so that was the last time they named one. And they're usually, the first ones were named after storms in America that had torn through America, and they write a workout art, and usually they do it as a test. They've used them throughout the games. Fran is probably the most popular one ever. And then... Yeah, I'm not sure how much more there is to say about
the
them
idea is
other
that
than
they're benchmark workouts, and there's kind of maybe the girls' workouts. There maybe about 10 of them or something, like the original ones.
The original, that's what. Now I'm thinking about it. There's like
then the idea is that you would test those maybe once every now and then, but maybe once a year each, something like that.
Yeah.
This is like classic, original kind of CrossFit stuff.
Yeah.
And then in the more recent years, sorry, I've taken over the question.
No, go, please. I said everything I had to say.
It's getting me fired up talking about benchmark workouts.
Battle Cat.
And then in the more recent years, it became more. There was hero workouts as well. Well, the first, Murph is one of the more famous original hero workouts. But it seems like they're releasing. There's a lot of different hero workouts that have been put out there, either by .com or someone else or whatever. And there's that new ones seem to come through every now and then.
And they're in memory often of a fallen service person, either from the military or a police or a firefighter.
It's funny now that I'm thinking about this. The lines are blurred a little bit now because, like, there's some workout, like, say, for example, it hasn't caught on worldwide quite yet, but the Battle Cat.
Different gyms might have their own benchmarks.
Different gyms have their
coaches
benchmarks and stuff like that as well. But I'd love to know how many original girls' name benchmark workouts there are. Because I remember printing the list of them. Because I remember
a lot of gyms would have it on the wall and the gym records for them.
Barbara, there's we had that at Bodie years ago.
Yeah. And then everyone scores on there and stuff.
And I don't know. I'd love your opinion, but I don't think they're the right way for us to test anymore either.
Not all of them, but some of them are good. Like
some
Helen,
of them are great. That's a
good
great
example.
test.
Fran is it's fairly good for depending on the skill level of the person.
Yeah, I think the thing with these tests, some of them are so. It depends what you want to test, and if we're testing, some tests you want because you're testing a specific thing, whereas a lot of the CrossFit benchmarks are a general test of a few things, a few different movements, a triplet of a few different movements. So it comes down to how proficient you are in those movements. And some of them are a bit more high skill as well, like things like handstand push-ups or muscle ups or something like that. So it becomes a test of the skill. And then because of that, sometimes a test isn't that applicable or useful for a large group of people. It might be really useful for a specific CrossFit athlete at a certain point in time. But some of the more general ones that I like to use would be things like Fran and Helen. Those two ones
Let's do a specific question around Fran because this is the most famous one.
Yeah.
For what type of athlete is Fran not a good test? When should you generally I'd say if someone blows out to 8 minutes, that's not what we're looking for with Fran, right? Like, so what should their approach be to work out like that?
Yeah,
when
so
it comes up?
Fran is 21:15.9, thrusters at 40 kilos for the boys, 30 kilos for the girls, and pull-ups. It's suitable for someone who can cycle those thrusters at that weight for, within the workout. They would probably start with at least 8 to 10 reps, at least, I would think. And they're also the kind of person who could probably do about that same number of pull-ups in their first set within the workout as well. And like Kim said, we're looking at a time domain of under 8 minutes. Would be the intent of that workout, as it was written. And then of course you could scale it and get a similar kind of time domain from it. But you need to be able to do those movements in a way that you can have a high heart rate and it's challenging your breathing and your lactic system and all that stuff. Not just like grinding. Got my thruster. I have to wait for another thruster. It's not really
doing single pull-ups.
Yeah, it's not really supposed to be like that. So, and that's a good example of why sometimes the benchmarks can be good workouts in the right context for the right people, depending on what it is, or if you do going to do the benchmark, it gets scaled and changed, according to the ability level of the person who's doing it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
What's your Fran time?
Now?
No, not now. We'd never talk about now. We'd never talk about...
I've got a funny story, actually. Your brother is involved with this one, and I was filthy about it. I thought that I'd gone sub 2 minutes on my Fran. Like, I was like G'd up for it. I was like, I'm going to go for it today. I'm going to do it. Oh, can you film me? He's like, yeah, sweet. Film me? And I'm like, yeah, I got it. It was like 1:59.
Yeah.
And I looked at my video, and I'm not locking out my elbows in my thrusters. And he's filming me from front on, so I can see it like I'm playing day. And I was filthy because I was like celebrating. He's like, "Yeah, high five, good work."
Yeah.
and I'm like, I can't claim this. I haven't done it. So anyway, it's 2:11 is my. It's a good workout.
2:11, 1:59, no lockout.
if the judge was standing side on, probably away with it,
yeah.
but front on, no.
Yeah.
That's still the worst, and not the worst, I guess also the best response I've ever had from a workout is when my Fran time was just under 4 minutes. When you're at that skill level and you're kind of just sneaking under 4, I think when you get around the 2 minute mark, it's kind of easy a little bit in a sense. Like it's different because it's so fast. You obviously going unbroken through every movement. It becomes a bit about transition and stuff.
It's become it's a lot about just literally height, how tall you are and stuff like
that.
Yeah,
that's right. But when you're struggling, but you can just get that 15 reps unbroken.
That 4 minute kind of
workout is awful.
Yeah, horrible.
So
that 4 minute barrier was like the big one that everyone would early CrossFit days talking about. What's your Fran time?
Yeah.
Under 4. Whoa,
whoa,
pretty good.
Jesus.
You were in the hurt locker for a solid 20 minutes after. Yeah, that's fun times. I had another question in there because some people who's kind of just discovering CrossFit or and maybe they follow other CrossFit gyms on social media and stuff, and then they see these gyms are doing these hero workouts, all these workouts with male names. And it looks like they're, having a blast, blah, blah, on Saturday morning stuff. I'd love to hear, maybe from both of you, why we really don't do that.
I can answer it from, I suppose, a ethos or like our... another one that's become really popular over the last couple of years is the charity days.
Yes.
And then they do like a 24-hour erg and between 4 people and stuff like that. And we've actually never participated in that, not because we're against charity, obviously, because I'd love to be able to do that stuff, but as well, it's like what their training is leading up to them for. So we won't just randomly throw in a charity day with 4 weeks notice on something that's going to be 16 hours on a ski erg when the longest they've done in the last 6 months is 2 kilometers. So I think we prioritize longevity, health much more than the enjoyment you're going to get or the satisfaction on doing that one-off, really long, typically is what people consider hard, event. So it's why we don't participate in the charity days and stuff like that when it isn't something that is going to align and help them with their training. Now, if it's an event in 6 or 8 months' time that someone wants to do that we have an adequate amount of time to train their body for, and we know it's going to have a positive outcome and not necessarily just break them for 3 or 4 weeks, then we'll do that. So that's from my end. That's why we don't. You might see some other gyms doing these big, long, hard charity days. That's why we don't participate in that stuff, because we haven't adequately trained for the kind of response that they're going to put their body through. And I don't want to put people through that with then having a negative effect on it. It could ruin your training for 2-3 months if you do just one of those. So
yeah, it's it can be, and you guys know your members here and have a ethos around that stuff, and I 100% respect that. And having these big hero workouts, for example. I mean, you look at the games. The event that was just at the games,
Atlanta?
At Atlanta, yeah.
Oh my god!
And it was so the weight vest on. They had a 1 mile run at the start and at the end, so 2 1 mile runs, and then the reps were handstand push-ups, 100 handstand push-ups with the weight vest, 200 pistol squats, and 300 pull-ups with the weight vest, and then on the run. So, like, obviously full-on workout. Took these guys around about the hour mark to do all these CrossFit Games athletes. I think most people can see that would be an unreasonable thing to program for a Saturday workout, whether it was for charity or not. Like, you're gonna need a charity fundraiser afterwards to pay for all the damage you've done to all the people who have done the workout. But there's smaller versions of like the normal heroes, like the Murphs and that kind of thing, which I think if the gym's been building towards those as a specific goal and wants to have them occasionally, they're the kind of thing that can be done occasionally with the right lead in, like Sean's describing, so that everyone's safe, everyone knows how to approach it for them, and they get what they want out, knowing that's that kind of big event that's been prepped for. Dropping that kind of stuff in as a random benchmark can be fine for some of the guys, but it can set people back in their training quite a bit. And
I think people also get too of a narrow focus on these workouts because they think, I just want to do Murph just to do Murph. But generally on a Saturday or even on a Friday, we have pretty big workouts. They might not be the size of Murph or whatever, and you might not be able to compare your result. But you come in here on a Saturday, and it's because most people we train in the morning, obviously, and you have the rest of the day off, and most people don't train on Sundays. You do a decent-sized workout, and it's generally around 30, 40 minutes, and you're pouring sweating after it. And that's really what you're looking for, not necessarily just to compare your Murph number with someone else's Murph number, and you're trying to do it, twice a year. That's, in my opinion, a bit of madness.
And you got to look at the types of contractions and the loading. Like, I try to look at, when I'm programming, how many reps across the session or across the week are people doing on pull-ups or handstand push-ups or whatever, and over the years I feel like I've developed and as we all probably have, a bit of an awareness of what an unreasonable amount of repetitions to do in workouts is through trial and error, and actually having done them myself and experienced the setbacks in training, or whether it's like been injuries or observing it with other people and early days programming, and we're constantly looking to refine and improve, but there's certain thresholds of reps in a week or in a session that I try not to exceed in a program.
I think that's a really good point with a lot of people focusing, and to your point, being a little bit narrow in their thinking, is like, if you look at the micro programming, so if you look at what you do each day as an individual day, you're going to have a very different perception of what you're actually doing. Whereas if you go back and you write down what you did, because most people in here typically are training 4 to 6 times. Like, we don't have people, like very few people in here are training twice.
Yeah.
I mean, we have very, very high active members. So they're training anywhere from 4 to 6 times a week. If you'd write down what your movements that you did in the last 4 weeks, and you put that down on a bit of paper, the amount of load and training that you're doing is significant. I think, but when you look at each individual day as like, I only did an 8-minute AMRAP. on that day. It's like, how could I have got better today? It's like, all right, well, let's look at the 3 weeks that you've been, and we'd typically say that when we're standing around the board as well. Like, guys, if you beat up and you've done, this is your 6th session this week and it's Thursday, you know what I mean? Maybe today, let's really lower it down.
Yeah, well, just on that point as well, I think it's worth mentioning about recovery and having the individual having some knowledge and obviously guided by the coaches to be able to regulate their training within the week, which program stream they're following on given days, and also how many times they're coming in a week, checking in with how they're feeling, because the type of training that we're doing, it is mixed modal. There's a lot of variety. There is progressions through it, but it's also a bit chaotic, isn't it? Because we're doing different movements on different days, different time domains, and so because of that little bit of chaos in the program inherent with CrossFit style training, we have certain things that we have in place, things like rest days, things like weekly build-ups over 3 weeks with things. But it is also a need sometimes for the individual to maybe not do that 6th or 5th or even 4th session they were planning on doing that week, just because that week it just happened to be some pretty challenging workouts, some longer ones, or there was a lot of wall balls one day, and that you've pulled up a bit pretty sore from that, and maybe that next day you either come in and take it a bit easier in the session, or you just take that rest day that you hadn't originally planned to do, but you might just need it that week.
We're definitely talking to a specific set people in here that, you know what I mean, they still think after years and years and years and years of training that more is more. You know what I mean? They're trying to squeeze that those extra sessions in, and it's like more is not more when it comes to this stuff over a long period of time, for sure.
Yeah, the work and it's tricky sometimes because the work ethic is good because it gets the result. It's necessary for the discipline and to get the result that you want over time, but sometimes it can work against you because you want to make sure you're doing everything you can to get the result you want, but and you have mind games with yourself. Oh, I'm just being, am I being a bit lazy today? I'll just push through it. Or
you watch too many David Goggins.
Oh, I don't want
stories, and you're like, no, I have to go.
Yeah. Or you're training with the group, and you don't want to let the group. Everyone's trying, and the coach is there, and it's like we don't want to let people down, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
There's psychology that can go on with it. But my advice that I try and tell my athletes is if you are feeling a bit tired from training, and it's natural to feel tired from training, it doesn't mean you necessarily can't train that day. That's what happens if you're training regularly. Some days you'll be feeling a bit lower than others. But if you've had a few days on the trot feeling like that, might be, say 3 days of feeling like not really firing, a bit sore, a bit grumpy, then have a look at your schedule and maybe reapproach like how many consecutive days of training you're doing in a row. And then the other thing is, I lost my train of thought there.
Well, I think what stands out for me is like you have to take some responsibility yourself as well to know how you feel and what what kind of level you're at. A great example actually from this week is from Drawson actually, because he stopped generally training on Fridays because he would train Friday at 5 p.m. till 6
into morning,
and then Saturday morning, and he realized himself that's like, all right, on Saturdays I've got nothing. Like, what am I doing? I've got nothing in the working, and that happened week after week.
That's common.
So it's like you have to take some responsibility. Be like, okay, listen, maybe I shouldn't train that Friday night, and that's what he started doing because it's benefiting his Saturday training, right?
Yeah, or you just kick it back a gear on the Friday night, and don't hit it with the top intensity. It's just maybe you still want to do the strength work, whatever it is, but you just want to move through the conditioning or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's fine as well. But that Friday night into the Saturday morning, I remember that back when I was at CrossFit Active, and that was a common thing among members of, feeling that. Myself, because I would do the classes as well, and coming in on Saturday was always a bit sluggish.
Yeah. I'm doing what you just said there. I generally like to train both those sessions, but or at least do some training on Friday night and then do Saturday morning. But one of them is going to have to be decreased intensity and decreased in weight, for sure, yeah.
And you've learned that from just trial and error with yourself.
Just how you feel.
As the other guys do, yeah. And if you can't on a given day, if you don't feel like you can get enough to like overload your body, like enough intensity to challenge yourself, then you probably need to like maybe consider a rest or pulling back a little bit that day. And that's kind of hard to define exactly. But I try to explain it as if you don't think you could do at least 90% of your best effort if you were tested that day, then it's probably not a day where you should be going like a normal intensity in your training. Does that make sense? Yeah, you should pull back a bit. It's like real broad, but
well, it's something that in here it's like, all right, do you do 7 sessions at 80%?
Yeah.
Or do you do 4 sessions at 100%? And I don't mean intensity, I mean like with how you feel.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like, all right, if we're getting 7 sessions in, but you feel 70% of your capability every session, it's like, right, maybe we drop that down to 4 sessions, you feel 100% of your, like as a generic
That's
rule,
right. Like if I look at a week, I know that, this is for my own training. I'll just give you like an actual example. If I'm, like right now, I'm wanting to start getting ready and hopefully do some of the open. I won't be able to do it all because I won't be able to do double unders this year, but I wanted to take part in the open. So I'm thinking about that and getting into the habit of doing CrossFit style training about 5 days a week. But I know that I'm normally pretty good. But this is me. Like I'm 37, so masters, so my recovery might not be as good as some of the younger guys. I know I've probably got 2 hard like sessions in the week where I'm like, I know I can hit that Metcon like pretty hard and feel like I've really challenged myself.
Battle cat mode.
Yeah. And then my other 3 training days, the ones in between, are going to be, I'm still going to be productive. I'm still going to get like a good training session in, but it might not be quite to that degree of that top end intensity. Still at like a sort of 85, 90.
Yeah.
But there still might be even one of those where I might have to kick it back a little bit more, just depending how I'm feeling and if it's been a bit hard on the shoulders the day before, for example, or whatever it is. Yeah.
And I think as well, it's safe to say that the people that are hitting the 7 sessions, I would say probably aren't adequately meal prepping. If they're not doing the mobility. Like if you're meal prepping, saunering, ice bath, getting good sleep, haven't got a stressful job, you know what I mean? No kids. It's like, come in and you can do this. This is your stresses.
Yeah.
If you go
if you've got a few of those things happening,
say like fairly stressful job, you're commuting, you got kids, you're not meal prepping, you're drinking alcohol weekly.
Yeah.
It's like maybe we don't do 7 hard sessions a week. Maybe in the long, the bigger picture, your longevity, you're probably not going to be a better athlete in 12 months by doing 7. You're probably going to be better off doing the 4 or 5.
Yeah, you do the 3 or 4 even, and doing them really well, and you'll find the recovery will be better because it's within that threshold of what you can recover from given your circumstances, and you've done less training, but you've got a better result. So it's good.
It's different if your name is Justin Medeiros, you got a mullet, you're 24, you're a full-time athlete.
Man.
He can train twice a day, all day, every day, but it's very different circumstances to most of us in here. Okay, let's round off this episode a bit with what's coming up, and you already mentioned it, Starry. We do have the Open. Maybe Sean, start with explaining what is the Open, because for some people it's probably going to be their first one next year. And how should people approach it if they're trying to participate? That'll be for you, Star.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's say the Open to us is probably the most fun 5 weeks that we have as a social event as well. So that's more of like the Mona Gym side of it. Every Friday night, we do a workout in here. It can be scaled. There's 2 variations of the workout. And we put on heats. We put on pizza and beers and stuff like that. Big social event. At the end of it, we have an awards night where we hand out silly awards. We all get together. Hopefully we can do that this year. That'll be our first party as a group in a long time, actually. Awesome. So as for in here, it's our big 5 weeks of social gatherings with a big party at the end of it. The bigger picture of it, the Open's the first qualifying test to the CrossFit Games. Anyone in the world can do it. You sign up online, and there's 1 workout a week typically for 5 weeks. That's sort of that's how I would describe it. That's not exactly how it's gone every year. Like I said, we do it in here on a Friday night. You'll have a judge, count your reps. There's a RX version and a scaled version, and then there's a worldwide leaderboard as well. So if you're a little bit more competitive type, you can see where you stand in New South Wales, Australia, and the world in your age category. I remember last Open, last year. Remember they put in you could see if you had brown hair and was 185 centimeters, and you just keep adding stuff in.
And you can make custom leaderboards, so you can get your buddies from other
and
gyms or whatever, and you can just make a little leaderboard.
But it's something that I think the 3 of us have always looked forward to, and we always try to get people to do it. It's always a bit of a hard sell for some people as well. But some of the big takeaways I take whether I try to tell people about it, is a lot of people as they get older, typically they don't get into these competitive environments and these uncomfortable environments where it's like there's
a little bit more of a like.
Yeah, it means something to them.
Yeah,
so people might have played sport when they're in their early 20s. Even most people stop around their mid 20s, and they haven't done anything. They might be in their mid 40s, and it's like all of a sudden they're asked to do this thing, and it's quite easy to say no. It's a lot easier to not participate in it. But like I always encourage every year, like throw your hat in the ring, like have a crack at it. You get the butterflies, you get that nervous energy.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it means nothing. You know what I mean? But it'll mean something to you intrinsically on the nights. You'll get that feeling, which I think's really healthy for people to get that feeling as well, that nervousness and that butterflies and something to look forward to every week. So
yeah, it's a good
for
way
sure.
to put it.
A bit of anticipation and stuff. And
so we'll as it gets closer and closer, you'll see it. We'll drill it into everyone. But if this is my first opportunity to tell people, you know what I mean? It starts last week of Feb, all of March. And definitely jump in, even if you don't think that you should. I guarantee at the end of it, you won't regret it.
So,
Yeah,
Starry,
for
for
sure.
you, the question is, if people now are thinking, okay, I want to do the Open next year, and I know for sure, I'm pretty sure there'll be some people that want to have a crack next year in 2021 in February, as Sean said, but it'll be their first Open. What should their focus be like in the training leading up to that? Being here at the gym.
Aside from the things we've just spoken about like managing, being a bit mindful about how they're recovering from their training and checking in with the coaches throughout the week, I think that's an important one, because if you're looking at doing a lead in where you've set a goal and you're going to do the Open, you know, even if you're not taking it too seriously, but you're going to be a bit more consistent with your training or put a bit more intent into it, having that awareness around making sure your recovery is important. But then second of all, I think a good thing to do would actually be to look back on the CrossFit Games site and some of the previous events and like
Open workouts.
Yeah, the open workouts, and you can see the event descriptions and the movement standards and like what movements they're using. And they're pretty much the movements we're doing in class a lot of the time, but because what happens during the Open is on the Friday it gets announced worldwide, and you get to see the workout. Then you've got to understand like the flow of the workout and what the judging is and all that kind of stuff. It's not super complicated, but it's all laid out there on the site. So having a look at the site like now, getting an idea of what that looks like, and then when it actually does get announced during the Open, you've got you're ready. You're sort of ready for that information.
Yeah.
So that when you come in Friday night, you're ready to roll. You're not having to ask questions or not sure what's going on. I think that's good to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be probably dropping in some of those previous Open workouts into the program a little bit, just to get a feel for it.
That'll be the days I'm not training.
Redoing open workouts, my nightmare.
It is so hard to redo an open workout.
But it's a great point.
This is a good
people
point.
haven't
This is a good
done
point.
done the Open before. They should probably do those workouts.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
for them, it's
Well, it's
awesome.
an interesting one because it's very hard to offer. I tell my athletes this a lot. The guys that some of these guys take it quite seriously, the sport. It's very hard for them to get this, even if they're in good shape, to elicit the same intensity that they got when they got their actual competitive score, because it was, if it's just a training, you're not actually competing. But it is also good to touch on it on some of them and get a feel for where you're at relative to previous performances. And what I was going to say before, doing the Open on a yearly basis, I think is one good great thing about it is you can look back on your previous year's results and kind of benchmark against yourself, and it's just data for how your training is tracking year in, year out as well.
Yeah.
I like that. Like, I haven't missed one yet myself, and each year I still find myself doing it and motivated to do it because I'm curious to see where I am relative to my own performance last year.
Yeah. What's your best ever finish in the Open, Australia?
I'm not sure.
You've been top 10, haven't you?
I think I might have got
Open?
one top 10, yeah.
I remember those. I don't know. This is a bit of a tangent, but I remember you were checking into regionals a few years ago, and I was standing with my brother, and we walked down to the table, and the lady was checking in to get your bands and stuff, and she said, "What's your name?" He said, "Luke Starr." She goes, "First year," and he goes, "7th." she's like, oh wow, okay. Band on there.
Yeah, for people who don't quite get that joke, Story is definitely one of the OGs in the
He's been
Australian
around a long
CrossFit
time.
community.
Been
Yeah.
around a long time.
I was just one of those guys that really wanted to compete, want to make it regionals every year, and just a few years just snuck in there. It got harder and harder as it went on.
How many team, everything?
I did 8.
8. Far out.
Yeah.
Is that the
I
most?
mean, there's a lot.
any
There's a lot
Aussie-
of guys that just easily make regionals, and it's not.
Rob
they do the open work.
Rob must have done almost every single one.
Yeah.
Was Rob at CFX?
Oh no, Rob.
Yeah, Rob.
But he
Oh no,
he
he
at
wasn't at
Randwick?
that one. He wasn't at that
He
one.
was he at
wasn't at-
Randwick?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he was.
So that was his
Yeah.
first one, and then
Yeah,
he's been
Yeah.
every
So,
single one.
so you've done CFX. Like
Yeah.
who was?
Yeah, the
so
first
you've
one.
done more.
He's done. You would have to have done the most.
Well, he's done more
regionals.
than me now because I've
Oh
stopped.
yeah, that's right.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot. Yeah,
But we
mate.
should-
I'm not going to make it next year.
Should
The
mention-
regionals is over anyway. But anyway, what I was sort of saying is there was some years there when I was really fighting to just hang in there and keep qualifying, and it's just became pretty comical in a way because there's a lot of the guys there, most of them are probably qualifying pretty comfortably, and they're trying to beat each other to try and make the games. So I wasn't one of those guys. I was one of those guys that was repeating open workouts and
Yeah, but you do have a world record, as they call it, in the deadlift box jumps in the team ones.
With court.
You guys set the
We
best
said
time.
it. We said it in the teams, and then it was beaten the following week. Actually,
was it?
Oh, was it?
by,
Oh, I didn't know that.
Tommy Hackenbrook and his teammate.
Oh, wow.
But I think they went on to win the game, so they can.
Fair
They
enough.
can have it there.
I was going to go back to the tips for the open. I was going to say, I thought you were going to mention actually, just if it's your first one, make sure you know double unders, and whatever level you're at, work on your pull-ups.
Fully,
Yeah.
yeah.
Those two things.
Yeah, double
is-
unders. Things that always come up. The
Yeah.
double unders going to come up.
Thrusters.
Double unders, thrusters, wall balls,
Rowing burpees.
rowing, burpees, handstand push-up is one as well. I mean, there's a list of there's kind of 12 core movements that are very likely to be in there, toes to bar. And often there's a heavier lift. There's
Yeah, clean or a clean
a
jerk
max
or
clean of
something.
some kind or a snatch of some kind. And often that's under a bit of fatigue as well. So,
Ascending ladders typically with the weight.
Yeah.
So
So, it's not necessarily being able to lift a heavy weight with a barbell when you're fresh or whatever.
Yeah,
it's
under
moving
fatigue.
well under fatigue is probably going to pay dividends when you get to
Yeah.
the open.
and these are some of the things we'll have to make sure we've got touches on in the programming leading.
Would have
in.
been
It's coming
2
around so
years since
soon.
the open. Like by the time we do it. When was the last one? Oh, it was October
'cause it was
last year.
Hang on, I'm getting confused now. It was October.
Yeah, it was October
October
last year.
So it'd be about 18 months
Yeah.
between opens.
Yeah.
Is that right? We didn't have one this year. 2020, there was no open.
Ah, yeah.
I don't think
All
so.
right, this year's been.
It's so weird to
Yeah.
think. But we didn't have an open all
That's right.
2020. We
That's
did it
right.
October
Yeah,
19.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right.
And now it's back to February.
And now it's back to
I hadn't even
Feb. So
thought
it'll be
about that, to be
18 months
honest.
between open. I can't wait. It's such a fun
It's so
5
fun.
weeks. It's so fun.
It's by far the 5 workouts I go the hardest all year.
And you're so
Sandbag
glad it's over. You're so
everything.
glad it's over by the end of it. You're just like, oh, another week.
Yeah.
That's
Week 3 and 4's always oh shit, here we
Depends
go.
on the workouts.
Well,
'Cause if
that-
it's-
yeah,
'cause
definitely, yeah,
usually-
yeah.
If you have
usually-
if you have a good start, a good couple of weeks at the start, you're
Yeah.
kind of like,
Oh,
you're
shit.
loving life.
Yeah,
you know
you
the,
know
you know
it's
the
some
bad's
bad-
coming, and
Yeah.
then it's also the other way around.
And usually the
Yeah.
last one is very, very hard.
Yeah.
Like almost
Yeah.
regardless of your skill level, it's just so hard. And they're all hard, really, because
Yeah.
you go, flat out. That's probably another tip I would give, because same as you, Astari, I've done every single one. Remember, it's 5 weeks, because people often get so caught up in the first week because it's the lead up. They've been training for it, and then it's the first week, and that's whether or not it goes well for you or if it goes bad for
yeah,
you.
yeah.
They just carry that energy, and then by week 3 they're just burnt out.
Yeah.
It's like it's a new workout for 5 weeks. You should kind of hit it with the same type of mentality.
That's
right.
Not completely fry yourself in
That's
week
right.
1 and 2.
yeah.
Let's finish up with information about the Amazing Race.
Okay, Amazing Race
This
is
sounds awesome.
28th of November, 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. We did it last week. It is going to be a very
race?
fun, we did like a trial thing of it.
Wow.
So it's going to be very, very fun day. We did it in 2018 was the last time we did it, and it's by far my favorite day that we've put on. So I won't say how many. You've got some challenges around Monavale. Meet at the gym. You'll be split up into 4 teams. You've got clues. You've got riddles. You've got like some engineering, building kind of challenges, stuff like that. All around Mona Vale, you got some roadblocks and stuff you got to get through. And then we meet back here. We'll do first, second, third, fourth. So we do it like every event is scored. So we'll have a winning team. And then that day as well, we're handing out all of our member shirts, which is always like a big thing that we do. So we hand out member shirts to people that have been with us for 2 years or longer. So this year we're handing out some 8-year shirts, I think is the most we've had. And then it goes all the way down to 2 year. And we'll also be announcing the member of the year as well. So if you can't make the amazing race, as in 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., if you come to the gym at 10 a.m., we're going to have a bit of a gathering, handing out the shirts and stuff like that as well. Highly recommend to everyone. I think we've got about 70 people checked in at the moment, sick. Which is good. So,
more than last time?
Yeah, I think last time we had 4 teams of like maybe 12 or 13 or something like that. So I'd love to get 4 teams of 20. So
wow.
Yeah, it'd be awesome to get 80 people through the day. That'd be brilliant. But yeah, all you need to be able to do is a little bit of running. If you can complete our classes with a running, you'll be absolutely fine on the day. It's not going to be the fittest team wins either. I think that's something people think. It's going to be like a real like fitness challenge. It has got very, very little to do with how fit you are. It's more problem solving, creativity, teamwork, stuff like that. So,
well, as long as there's no
sounds awesome.
finding the stuff in the Flying Fox Park where people screwed us up.
We did it 2 years ago. We did
sounds
like
a bit salty there.
We did
Someone stole our things.
We did a treasure hunt through a park. So there was 4 different things, and you got clues on what you had to look for. We didn't expect everyone to be so childish. The first team that got there went and found all 4 and then just took them. So the other 3 teams arrived, and they're looking for this, like, we had all these different things, but they're looking for their items throughout the park, and they're like, it's not there. And I'm like, well, I hit it right there. I know it's there. And I went and looked, and it wasn't there. The first team stole them all. Taking that into consideration. Yeah.
Don't be doing that this year, guys.
Yeah. Sean, thanks so much for coming on. Starry, thanks for dropping in.
Guys.
And thanks for doing the awesome program for us. I do, really do enjoy it.
I'm glad you're enjoying it.
It's so fucking good.
And, it's nice to hear you guys, you're obviously doing the workouts yourselves and getting involved with the guys and doing the classes. That's awesome to hear. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, guys. We'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
To watch more videos like this, you can click the next one right up here. And if you want to subscribe, click the link down here.